Our story begins with a chaotic scene in a house. Someone seems to either fall or get knocked out. It's hard to see what truly happened. The police are called as a result. The scene switches to doctors operating on a man. Then we see a man in his house, taking pills in the washroom. Due to the scar on his chest, we can infer he is the man who received the heart transplant. He is Terry, our protagonist. The man has a young daughter named Angela. They walk outside and she finds a 4-leaf clover on the ground, which means good luck is supposed to come their way. After that, they occupy a hospital. As Angela is being tended to by a doctor, we see an injury on her back. Soon, Terry meets the doctor, who tells him how things are going. She is Liz, promising she would do anything for Angela. While she walks back to their car with her father, she mentions how her father liked Liz for a long time. Terry is somewhat embarrassed that his daughter is mentioning this. When he walks outside alone, he witnesses a lady run out of her car, yelling for help. She has to take someone out of the backseat. This event bothers Terry, giving him an image of what took place at the house from the opening scene. Later, he tells another doctor about what happened to him. He says it felt like he had headphones on and he heard only his heartbeat. The doctor asks if he can hear it now, which Terry can't. He had a heart transplant, the doctor reminds him. Experiences like this are common, but Terry says this is the 3rd time it happened. Left alone in the office, he looks at the paperwork that tells him who he got his heart from. He focuses on the person's name, Jean. He also learns the cause of his demise was a head injury. At home, Terry is with Angela along with Liz. It is the man's birthday. His daughter gives him a present, which is a framed photo that has both of them on it. She says she stole the photo from his desk. This present makes Terry smile prior to him saying he loves it. Sitting outside with Liz, he gets a present from her too. It is the complete recording of a blues artist. They end up kissing, something Angela watches them do. The next scene has Terry at the hospital. He comes over to a bulletin to see the name Stanovich there. It's a name he remembers seeing on the paperwork in the doctor's office. He finds that man smoking outside. He is a paramedic on his break. Terry starts talking to him and sees Stanovich doing something that isn't clear. After a short while, Stanovich starts leaving. Terry tells him he saw his name on his donor form. The paramedic has to turn around, ignoring the statement. Once Terry utters the name Jean, Stanovich becomes unnerved, asking who Terry is. He breaks a bottle that he threatens Terry with. After not getting his answer, he demands to know once more who Terry is. Stanovich thinks someone talked to him, but Terry denies this. The name Acherton is mentioned. It's a name Terry isn't familiar with. For some reason, Stanovich defends himself, saying he's not a monster. He starts rambling about not knowing that some unspecified person were going to do what they did. Frightened at how unnerved the paramedic is, Terry is forced to say he believes him. Unfortunately, saying that does not help him. Stanovich throws himself at Terry, causing the latter to get another vision of the house. When they both get up, the attacker has a stuck in his chest. He takes it out slowly, allowing us to see how deep it went through. It looks like it could have delivered a... Terry is left with no choice except to run away. In the morning, his daughter asks him if he's thinking about her mom. He says he isn't. The girl urges him not to lie, for she knows he is lying. She also says it's okay for him to like Liz now. Then, he takes his pills again before looking nervously at the couch. He remembers what he did to Stanovich, and this prompts him to visit the police precinct. Yet he doesn't walk into the building to report anything that happened. Instead, he sits in his car, where he gets a call from Liz. She tells him she lost a patient today. She is upset that she didn't try hard enough to save him. Liz also informs Terry that a paramedic was stabbed outside the building last night. Knowing it was he who did it, he feigns being ignorant of the attack by asking if anyone knows who stabbed the man. Liz says it could have been a homeless person. Additionally, she asks Terry if he is okay because he sounds strange. At night, the doctor is at his house. He starts giving her big compliments regarding her looks and her profession. He then asks why someone like her is interested in an IT guy. She insists that he stop going further with this thought. Liz says the world needs more people like him. She loves that he thinks the world of his daughter. Once the duo is on the couch, he talks about not feeling perfect. Therefore, Liz advises him to rest before she leaves. After that, he then gets another vision of what happened to Stanovich. On the next day, Terry searches for Jean on the internet. He finds an article that says Jean and his wife lost their lives in a break-in. Terry pays special attention to how Jean was murdered. He also sees a certain detective mentioned in the article. It prompts him to call the police station to ask for him. When he gets him on the phone, Terry starts talking to him about the case involving Jean and he lies about knowing the man. Believing Terry, the detective tells him where they could meet. Following this phone call, Terry enters a bar to find the detective there. He is Detective Philip, and he instructs the man who called him to sit down. He rudely asks who Terry is, and how he knows Jean. Terry says he was an old friend, but Philip doesn't believe him. Terry wants to know if Philip ever caught anyone from this case. The detective admits he hasn't. Then, Terry asks if Philip knows who Acherton is, the name Stanovich brought up. After Philip says he doesn't know who that is, he gets up while saying it's obvious Terry never met Jean or his wife. On the television there, we learn Stanovich passed away from his injury. At a different time, Terry visits Liz at her job to bring her flowers. As he waits for her in the hall, he gets a troubled reaction once an orderly passes him by. He goes to the washroom to collect himself. The mirror shows him that one of his eyes is red. The orderly that passed him by comes out of a stall and sees that Terry is suffering. Looking at his name tag, Terry sees the man's name is Edgerton. Shortly after, he follows the man outside until he approaches him in a subway. He gets another troublesome vision and pushes Edgerton into an oncoming. It seems like he did not intend to do that. Afterward, we see the detective sleeping in his car. His police radio informs him that there is a scene in the subway station. The moment Edgerton's name gets mentioned, he opens his eyes. Soon, he enters the subway to meet another detective there, who tells Philip that Edgerton was pushed. The next scene shows Liz urgently coming to Terry's house. Angela tells her that her dad locked himself in the washroom. Liz talks to him, seeing that his looks fresh. She asks if he took his medication. He rudely points out that he's not her patient. Upset with his attitude, she wants him to tell her if he thinks they have taken a wrong turn somewhere. The man starts telling her something about last night, but quickly stops. He leaves the washroom and sees Liz driving his daughter to school. Out there, Philip approaches him, saying he should come with the detective. He holds a piece of evidence belonging to Terry that was found in the subway. Elsewhere, Philip asks if Edgerton's DNA will link him to Jean's crime scene. Terry feigns ignorance by saying he does not know. Yet Philip doesn't buy his response, thinking he knows something. He also thinks Edgerton did not slip in the subway. The man believes Terry pushed the orderly in addition to eliminating the paramedic. He knows this because Stanovich was the responding paramedic at Jean's crime scene. He has a feeling that the man he's talking to knew that. Terry replies that when Stanovich came close to him, he could hear his heartbeat loud and clear. He reveals to Philip that Jean was the donor of his current heart. To make it more believable, he shows the scar on his chest. This forces the detective to laugh. Terry starts leaving, seeing how he isn't being taken seriously. Even though Philip reminds him he has evidence that Terry was at the subway, Terry is unafraid. He says he will turn himself in prior to leaving. As he starts driving, his heart gives him trouble. He loses control and crashes into a parked car. Once he regains consciousness, Liz is the first person he sees. She informs him that his doctor said Terry's cardiac enzymes have increased drastically. She thinks sometime before his accident, he did something that made his heart palpitate. Because of that, he nearly lost his life. Then, Angela comes in, someone Terry is very happy to see. She gives him that 4-leaf clover. Perhaps the good luck came in the form of him not losing his life. Later, Philip sits beside him. He considers it amazing that Terry's heart stopped itself the moment he wanted to turn himself in. He starts placing photos for Terry to look at, saying there were 4 perpetrators at Jean's house. They did not know the couple was at the house. They murdered Jean's wife in front of him. As Philip is narrating this, the heart rate monitor shows a huge jump in Terry's heart rate. Seeing the big number, the detective is amazed again. Then, Terry looks at a photo of Jean's wife, who looks very much like Liz. At the doctor's office, the doctor is also amazed by Terry. He informs the man that he is the second documented case ever of a blood type switch. Terry adopted his donor's blood type and his immune system. This is great because Terry's previous immune system was in horrible condition. Walking with Liz, he says he has a craving for a certain food and he starts saying it in French. This might be related to Jean being a French man. In the parking garage, Terry gets another aggressive vision. He senses that one of Jean's murderers is nearby. At home, Terry pours himself some alcohol. He reaches out to it, but he doesn't drink it. After a while, he drives out to the hospital to occupy the garage. He waits until the man who was in his previous vision arrives. When he returns to his truck at the end of his shift, Terry approaches him. He declares that he knows the man was involved in the murder of Jean and his wife. Of course, since this is true, the man quickly becomes aggressive. Terry defends himself with a knife to ease him. He wants to know who else was involved in the act. At that point, the man tells him what Stanovich told him, that he didn't know they were going to do certain things. The man says he told them not to do it, and he even pleaded at the time. Then he attacks Terry, who brings him down without much effort. Terry proceeds to stomp the third culprit to his demise. Terry comes home and sees Liz, and they soon engage in intimacy. In the process of doing it, Terry suddenly imagines her as Jean's wife and becomes disturbed. He momentarily has a hard time breathing, yet nothing awful comes of it. After they fall asleep, Liz wakes up and puts her hand on his scar. In the morning, she joins him outside and Terry kisses her right away. He thanks her for everything she has done for him, as well as for his daughter. In response, she says she would do anything for the two of them. Inside the house, Terry pours himself some alcohol again, but Liz warns him not to drink it. Later, he finds an article in the newspaper about an exhibit in the museum that he knows Angela would like to see. Just like with Terry drinking alcohol, Liz thinks it's another bad idea to go there, but Terry insists on going. At that moment, Philip enters the house. Liz leaves, somewhat upset, not because of a stranger entering without knocking, but because of Terry's insistence on going to the museum. Angela arrives and sees Philip sitting on the couch. Her first words to the man are that her room is pink, which is a color she likes. Philip humors her, saying he likes it too. After Terry sends her to her room, he tells the detective she has a genetic disorder, but he doesn't say which one. We see that Philip has brought a briefcase for Terry. He also mentions that he saw Terry last night. However, the man of the house doesn't want him there. Philip is invested in the case, saying he was inside Jean's house and saw what those monsters did. He wants revenge to a similar degree that Terry does. Before he leaves, Philip says that if Terry will continue with his attacks, he has to find a cleaner way to do it. The instructions are in the briefcase he brought. The next scene shows the trio at the museum. The presenter says the disease is extremely rare, occurring in 1 out of 2 million people. This exhibit prompts a school kid to tease Angela, pointing out she must have the same disease. Saying this misbehavior, Terry gets very upset and tells him to shut his mouth. When they're out of the museum, Liz says it was a stupid idea to take Angela there. It was like asking her to accept she is going to. From those words, we learn the poor girl has exactly the same disease, which is why she wanted to visit the museum. Terry asks Liz what she's going to do once Angela is older, with her condition being worse. Liz doesn't have an answer for that. Then she says he is keeping something from her. She wants to know what's going on, but at the moment, Terry can't tell her. Coming home, Terry opens the briefcase Philip gave him. It has a revolver inside, along with an article regarding the most recent man Terry brought down. He finds out that a funeral will be held for that man at a certain church. Following this scene, we see the church. Terry is there to listen to a talk about the deceased man. There, he sees more disturbing visions. Soon, a man enters who looks nervous, bringing Terry's attention to him. After the funeral, that man sits in his car, trying to start it. He calls someone else to say he thinks the man who's been eliminating Jean's murderers is in the vicinity. It seems Terry has acquired a reputation for his vengeful acts. In a short span of time, Terry drives up behind the man, who comes out to tell Terry he didn't do those terrible things and he's simply an office clerk. We then observe the man he called, sitting in his car, watching the situation through binoculars. This mysterious man calls someone else, saying they've caught the man they were looking for, and that their bait worked. Supposedly, Terry was lured out to come to the man he's currently with. Switching back to Terry and the man admits to being an. However, he justifies his job by saying that he only does it to people who are going to perish anyway. Unfortunately, this excuse doesn't stop Terry's rage. He shoots the office clerk with the revolver Philip provided him. Then, Terry comes home to find Liz on the couch with a sleeping Angela. Liz wants him to know that his daughter called her while crying, wondering where her dad was. Now that he is there, the lady leaves, upset again. Terry picks Angela up and carries her to bed. Afterward, we see him outside near a bridge, where Philip joins him. Terry wants to give the detective his briefcase back, but Philip can't take it back. He also says Terry cannot walk away from his mission. He has to finish it for his daughter. However, Terry believes he had done enough since he already claimed the lives of 4 people. As he is walking away, Philip blurts out that it took Jean's wife 5 minutes to lose her life. Terry stops and turns back, asking if Philip was ever intimate with her. Since the detective doesn't answer him, Terry knows it is true and punches him for it. We know it's Jean's heart that made him do that. All Philip can say is that Jean won't let go of Terry because the late man's heart has control over him for good. At a different time, Terry walks with his daughter. Angela asks him if Liz left them like her mom did. He assures her that Liz will always be there for her. Soon, she gets on a school bus and goes to school. When Philip comes home with his briefcase, he looks at a photo of Jean's wife. He also looks at a photo of Liz. He probably notices the resemblance between them. After that, Terry meets Liz and tells her he's losing his life. He wants her to watch over Angela when he's gone. The man emotionally grabs her by the face to let her know that he loves her. He follows these words by sadly telling her to give his daughter the things he can. Terry finally tells her the secret. His heart is making him take people's lives. He falls to the ground, and she holds him. They both manage to enter the house before Terry starts to lose consciousness. Through his blurry vision, we see some people there, and one of them touches Liz. In the process of regaining awareness, Terry sees through blurry vision how someone moves around in his house. He lies in a bathtub full of ice, looking pale. Shortly after, a restrained Liz gets brought into the room. It is too hazy to discern what is happening in there. Once the haziness settles down, we observe there is a surgeon there, along with the man who sat in his car using the binoculars in an earlier scene. The surgeon starts talking to Terry while underneath all that ice. He informs the man that Jean probably had 4 months to live because he had a tumor. Furthermore, he says Jean was not their victim. Thankfully, we see Philip walking up to Terry's house. He observes scattered belongings near the front door. This causes him to cautiously look through the window to see the other man in the house. As the surgeon keeps talking, Terry informs him that he's the person who received Jean's heart. Those words startle everyone in the room, including Liz. To see if that's true, the surgeon undoes Terry's shirt and sees his scar. He then comments about Terry looking familiar. He injects his heart with a saying he will be gone in a few seconds. Fortunately, Philip enters the room to instantly shoot the other man to his demise. The surgeon quickly reacts by stabbing the detective in the neck with his scalpel. He follows this action by taking Liz out of the room. The poor lady screams in fear as he drops her on the floor. Miraculously, her troubled scream awakens Terry's heart, because the powerful organ recognizes it to sound like the scream of its previous bearer's wife. So Terry opens his eyes, alive once more. The surgeon is about to kill the lady he loves just like he did to Jean's wife. But Terry doesn't allow him to do this terrible deed a second time. He knocks the man down before activating the defibrillator on the floor. Shortly after, he uses it to shock the evil man, putting his heart to permanent rest. What an appropriate payback. Terry and Jean have both received their vengeance. The final scene shows us Terry is still alive. He is in a party with Angela. Liz approaches him. Of course, he is happy that she did. While hugging, he tells her there will be no more secrets. Soon, we learn that the biggest secret wasn't from Terry. During that peaceful moment, we find out that the heart Terry is carrying was paid for by Liz. She didn't want Angela to be alone. There was a man who worked at the hospital who she heard rumors about. Liz told this man to find a heart, not wanting to know where it came from. Besides caring for Angela, she didn't want to lose Terry either. When she tries to touch him, he instinctively backs away. Liz reminds him that sometimes people make for the ones they love. All we get to see as his response is that he cries, learning the truth about what she did.